with the different experiences that you did have working with all of the artists that you've worked with in the past, how do you, or what do you think, or how do you feel that working with them in the past has influenced you, or helped you, or caused you, or you're working into being the artist you are now?
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon because I was always helped and guided by the people that I admired because it turned me into a listener. I worked at KFOG radio in the old days and it was easy listening. And one of the things that Pete Taylor, the old general manager, said, "Are you listening? Are you listening?" You know, listening to his format and the music that he was playing and how he segued from one music to the other. Now, one of the things that Merle Hoover told me, always listen to female singers, because if you pick something up that they do, you're never going to be accused of trying to imitate, let's say, Nancy Wilson. However, you know, you listen to various, like Nat Cole is one of the very few singers who knew how to say the word love. Love.
Love.
I mean, he really got into it. The phrasing of a Frank Sinatra is just superb. When I do my Cole Porter concerts, my wife got me about 20 CDs of various people interpreting Cole Porter. The best one by far was Ella Fitzgerald. Nobody interpreted Cole Porter better than Ella Fitzgerald. And when you go to the Smithsonian, the American History Museum, there's a permanent display to both Ella Fitzgerald and to Duke Ellington. And when you see those personal letters from Ira Gershwin doing the Gershwin Songbook, from Cole Porter from doing the Cole Porter Songbook, you realize how much they appreciated what she did. And then when you go and you read books, read books on Nat Cole's life, for instance, and how he approached a song. You read books on Sinatra's life, on how he approached a song. Just a few weeks ago in the Parade magazine, Wynn, who has the large casino,
yes.
Stephen Wynn, said he asked Sinatra on a plane trip once, how do you approach a song? Well, he took it like a poem. And before he heard the music at all, what is the composer trying to say here? And as a poet and somebody who studies poetry,
Yes.
if I can look at it that way, my mother told me a long time ago, never do a song unless you've either personally experienced the feeling or you can empathize with it. So a 22-year-old kid should never sing My Way. He hasn't lived enough to do it.
Yes. So when you approach a song, is that the way you, how do you approach a song that you're working on?
I approach it holistically. I mean, I really want to like the melody as well. And I also like to get some ideas, maybe from what other people have done with it, but I really pay attention to the words. And I don't try just to approach it, I try to read the song. I try to read the song in music as if I were reciting a poem. And my mother used to call singing glorified speech. I've never heard it before or since. And if you think you're trying to communicate something to somebody on a one-on-one level, that's why when I look at the audience, I don't try and look at the audience as a whole. I try to look at individual people in the audience, and therefore I can communicate with them much more than if I just looked at them as a masterpiece.
Now, when you speak of communicating, my medium is theater, and a lot of the same principles is that you're trying to be authentic.
Yes.
You're trying to be honest. You're trying to communicate. And it sounds like what you're saying is that you use those same principles in approaching a song.
I just took a Meissner acting course at ACT, and I hope to take some more courses at ACT. And it really breaks you down to what are your core emotions and how much of those emotions are you going to put into that song that you're doing. I had an opportunity this month to sing Strange Fruit for the first time, Billie Holiday's song about lynching. And I almost couldn't finish the song because it was so poignant to me. One is a student of black history, when you realize there were 5,000 black folks lynching, those are the ones they officially have accounted for between 1880 and 1960. And when you think about that blood on the leaf and blood at the root, black bodies swinging from it, I mean, this is real. This is real. I've never heard an audience more quiet when I sang that song. I don't have the best voice necessarily to sing that song. I don't have Billie Holiday's style in singing that song, but I tried to sing it as honestly as I could, as authentically as I could.
And what else can anyone ask for? I can relate to that experience as an actor in one play that I was in. It was an ensemble piece, so several people played several different roles, and one of the roles was that of a Ku Klux Klansman, and part of the role that I had to do was put on a Klan suit, and that was so difficult.
Sure.
But I took it as an acting exercise. If I could do that and do some substitution, some other acting kinds of techniques, I could possibly do some other things. So I took it on as a challenge as opposed to a resistance, and I feel like I grew from it. Now, I'd like for us to jump to what we're getting ready to do now, in that you will be performing in our Afro Solo Arts Festival that's going to take place August the 18th at Yoshi's, we're doing a show entitled In Honor of Four Great Ones. And one of the great ones that we're honoring is Sammy Davis Jr. And Noah will be paying tribute to Sammy Davis. How do you feel about paying tribute to Sammy Davis?
It's an awful responsibility, awesome responsibility, and I mean awful in the way that I'm filled with awe in trying to pay tribute to somebody who is so very, very, very talented. He's probably the entertainer of the age. Here's a man who could do it all. I think he was underrated as a singer because he could do so many other things equally well. I mean, he was a wonderful actor. He was a quick draw artist. He was a drummer. Sammy Davis was a humanitarian. There's so many wonderful things they did. If you hold up and the people can see a picture of Sammy Davis with Dorothy Dandridge in Porgy and Bess, which has still not been re-released when it was released in the late 50s. My father took me to see it at the Coronet Theater, and he played Sporting Life. Now, John Buck and Bubbles did a great job, but Sammy Davis defined the role, at least for my generation. Just wonderful, along with Sidney Poitier playing Porgy. But it's an awesome responsibility to try, and here's a man who had so many songs connected with him that were given to him. For instance, Birth of the Blues. The composer got up one night and when Sammy was singing, he said, "It's your song, take it." Candyman, Mr. Bojangles, all these songs were so associated with him. Yeah. And also, kind of noted as a sidekick, but he really was the main show. He just came along so early that people couldn't understand how much more talented he was than anybody else. And there was a book that came out maybe a year or two ago, which I was a little disappointed. I didn't quite read it because it blamed Sammy Davis for taking some of the insults and maybe the humorous jibes that came his way. But I wonder which choice he had. Why don't they take a look at the people that sent those jibes his way, rather than him, who had to do what he had to do in order to survive at a time which made him a pioneer, opening up the casinos, singing to the audiences that he sang at the places that he sang at. He really opened the door for many of the entertainers who came behind him.
And some would say some of the jabs that we take from each other now are being shot directly from us to us right. in some of our music. So I don't know if that's progress or what. But during that time, and there's a story that you have here that reminds me of Langston Hughes's poem, "Life for Me hasn't been a crystal stair." So there were times in his life that were not a crystal stair either, but he continued to climb.
Yes,
still climbing. So
mother to son.
Admire him for that. Have you decided some of the songs you might perform?
Well, you hit about 4 right there.
Okay.
There was a wonderful album that I can't call it a CD because CDs hadn't been invented yet, but in the 50s called A Treasury of Golden Hits. And he had Stranger in Paradise on. He had so many wonderful songs, but I'm going to try and pick the top ones that really express that the public would say no now that he did and that he was so associated with.
And we talked once about your kicking your heels because he could kick his heels. How's that going?
Well, this is going to be a challenge for me. I'm taking a course in Broadway dance at the College of Marin in the fall.
Wow.
I'm taking this seriously, and also a course in ballet because I have to be a really good actor, and I'm going to the gym and taking balance courses as well. But I want to do it as well as maybe Bob Hope and George Burns and Jack Benny. I don't think anybody can approach Sammy Davis, although I remember reading about him as he reached the age of 60 that he had to slow down a little bit because what people expected of him. But one of the premier tap dancers of all time as well. We forgot to mention that among his many other talents.
It's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you for the privilege and opportunity.
As Afro Solo TV goes on, I hope this won't be your last visit. You've been watching Afro Solo TV.